Now, the Philippines were the UK's 60th largest trading partner in the 4 quarters to the second quarter of the year. But from the Philippines' perspective, though, the UK is our 21st largest trading partner. Now, between the two economies, total trade in goods and services actually hit £2.9 billion. That's up 0.4%, with meat and meat preparations as among the top items. Joining us now for more, British Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines Executive Director Chris Nelson. Hi, Chris. Good morning. Great to see you.
Good morning. Great to see you, and good morning to all your viewers.
All right. So, Chris, one of the big changes since the last we spoke would be the U.S. elections. Post-U.S. elections, we now know that Trump is going to make a comeback to the White House by January next year. I wonder, do you expect this to rebalance, to trigger a rebalancing of U.S., UK, and EU relations?
Look, I mean, obviously everyone is currently discussing and looking at the fact, of course, Trump during his campaign has been very clear about tariffs. I would point out that the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, met with Trump prior to the election, and he has reiterated, obviously, at a phone call with now President-elect Trump, and saying that the relationship remains incredibly strong and important. Equally, the new EU is the largest trading partner for the UK. So, as Andrew Bailey said, the central bank governor of England, they've got to really balance and see exactly what's going to happen and how these tariffs may or may not play out. The UK has to see and remains committed to both the US and the EU. But clearly tariffs, as you've noted in your previous discussion, as the IMF has said, is going to be a key consideration, has potential to impact world trade.
Chris, I was looking at, it's an article by The Independent who was saying that it seems like Trump is taking a zero-sum game perspective approach. One wins, one loses, choosing one or the other. And coming from one of the commentaries from Stephen Moore, who is an advisor of Donald Trump, reflecting possibly Trump's thinking when he said Britain has to decide, do you want to go towards the European socialist model or do you want to go towards the U.S. free market? What are your thoughts on statements such as that? And what answer are we expecting from the UK? If you can give us some clues.
Well, I would think that the UK is going to say that we'll deal with both. Clearly the independent advisor can make those statements. However, it's well founded that world trade has grown across the world. It's beneficial. We can see it here between the UK and the Philippines, how our relationships have grown. And for the UK, where growth has been a key mantra of the election for, obviously, Sir Keir Starmer's party, and as a key focus, then they'll need to discuss and have benefits with both the EU and, of course, the US. And let's not forget, tariffs works both ways. Tariffs can also, has been discussed, as a potential inflationary impact. So I think clearly and understandably there is a lot of speculation on how might happen, as obviously Trump shapes his new cabinet, and prior to his, obviously, being inaugurated in January. But I think also we've got to step back and say that the UK is looking to expand its trade and its trade initiatives across the world. And in that context, I would say that Southeast Asia and the Philippines is also extremely important.
All right. Pivoting a little bit, Chris. Of course, one of the big recent news involving the UK is that you guys signed a civil nuclear agreement with the U.S. at COP29. Actually, during COP29, over 30 countries joined you in committing to tripling global nuclear capacity. And let's not forget, the UK has 9 reactors across 5 nuclear sites, providing around 14% of your electricity from 5.9 gigawatts of capacity. I wonder, though, are you seeing potential collaboration or cooperation between the UK and the Philippines when it comes to nuclear energy? We're going to get to the meats part later on, which is already big when it comes to our trade ties. What about nuclear power? Because last week the Philippines just hosted a nuclear power supply chain summit. And I know there are representatives and even companies from the UK who also attended.
No, correct. So, I mean, and President Marcos has indicated that he sees potential in nuclear energy, obviously civil nuclear energy. And energy security and supply is critical. So, yes, I could see UK companies being involved. I'd also say, though, that UK companies are actively involved already in the renewable energy sector. Let's not forget the largest single investment this year into the Philippines is by Actis, a UK fund, $600 million. That's into the Terra solar park. And that's also a key commitment. And if I bring it back to the Philippine economic briefing, which just took place in London in October, then last month, then energy and energy infrastructure is going to be there. So yes, I could see the UK helping. The UK does, as you rightly say, get 14%. Other countries, it's even higher. I believe France is 70%. But yes, I think there's all possible areas to explore, and energy security. And the need to move into other areas. And as I've mentioned, renewable energy, where the UK as a firm supporter and investor in the Philippines, will be very important. And I can see activity in those sectors.
Mm-hmm. There you go. We're actually showing photos of your Philippine economic briefing that actually happened in London. So many important personalities there. Oh, you've also got Dennis Uy of Converge, also Finance Secretary Ralph Recto there. It's pretty hot, this conversation about nuclear. I was attending a summit, a forum last week, and we did hear from Dr. Carlos Arcilia, who talked about the power of nuclear energy, why he says it's important. He says, nuclear, if I may just share, has 4 million times more energy density than common energy sources. So meaning nuclear has nearly 4 million times more energy than coal, oil, gas, solar PV. Nuclear power is an energy source without carbon emissions, so it can help with a clean energy drive. There's just so much potential there. So hopefully we'll also be able to see potential collaboration between our two countries. Moving on, let's go over now to the meat. Of course, meat and meat preparation is still the big items that we trade, the UK and the Philippines. Talk to us about the outlook for trade, because right now it's actually flat, growing by just 0.4%. What is the view of your member companies when it comes to trade?
Well, sure, I think it is very positive. And thank you for highlighting the pictures, as you said. The Philippine Economic Briefing took place in London on the 31st of October, and that highlighted potential areas for investment in the Philippines. We just had the visit of AHDB, the Agricultural Horticultural Development Board. This is their third visit. Growth year to date for the first half year on pork is up 26%, on beef we're up over close to 300%. And this is a benefit to both the UK and the Philippines. It helps the Philippines in terms of food security, and at the same time it benefits British farmers, and of course the Philippine consumer is benefiting from high quality UK beef and pork. So will it grow? Yes. Do we want it more than 0.4? Of course. But I think it's fair to say that in an area where obviously we've been battling across the world with interest rates, there's been growth, growth has been modest across the world. I think this is a great success story. And the UK's ties, and I think I'd like to just congratulate Secretary Recto in his speech. He made it very clear to come to the Philippines to invest. And I think that did resonate. And to come back to your earlier questions, Mimi, he obviously outlined energy and he outlined infrastructure, and he highlighted the willingness to do business. So I'm confident it will continue to grow, and I'm very confident it will continue to grow in terms of exports of pork and beef. And I just want to say, in these visits, we're looking at long-term relationships. And obviously, they visited some of our members' companies, such as One World Deli, and also the Meat Shop, which is Jess Cham, who also leads some of the Meat Importers Association. So all of this is very conducive to further growth in that sector and in others.
All right. And Chris, we cannot say goodbye without, we've been talking about this for months. We want to share some snippets of what happened during the Great British Festival. I think we have wonderful photos about the exciting things that happened. So just very quickly, maybe 60 seconds to give us the highlights.
Sure. This is the second year that we have revived it. We've managed to increase the number of participating companies. There's one of ours, that's CyberQ. We had obviously the major banks there, BDO, BBI, Philippine National Bank. We also had Union Bank. And this also shows banks that have a strong support back in the UK. And we got more interest, more involvement, and we're looking to plan for an even larger event next year. And I think this really shows, A, the commitment of Philippine companies in the UK and UK companies to here.
All right.
And I think it's all very positive and in lines with this being, I think, the 70, and there's our ambassador, reinforcing our long-standing relations. And relationships in the UK and the Philippines, in my opinion, has never been stronger. We look forward to continuing growth. I just want to stress on another thing. We look forward to further passage of key legislation. We haven't had a chance to discuss that, but certainly on the Cybersecurity Act and on the e-governance. We've seen progress in the Anti-Agriculture Economic Sabotage Act, and we're very positive. And we appreciate the Philippine Economic Briefing. And yes, the Great British Festival was a great success, and it will be back again next year.
Yeah, so we're all looking forward to next year's event. Always big, always grand. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate the time. See you soon.
Too, again.
In the studio, right? You're going to be here in Manila.
I'm going to be in Manila, and I will be with you
all right.
next month.
Wonderful.
Look forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Face to face.
Thank you,
Take care.
Chris.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you soon. Now, here's